We are entering what I call stage 3 of the investment cycle, and this is where most people don't realize the rules of money change. I'll show you. Stage 1 is when people buy assets because they believe in the long-term value of that asset. We saw the stage 1 happen in the early 1990s when people were buying low-value companies, low-value stocks because they believed in the long-term value of these businesses and internet companies which didn't explode yet. Then in the early 2000s, people were buying houses because they wanted to buy a house, they could afford to buy a house, and they were getting fixed rate mortgages that they could easily qualify for. And then if we take a look at the 2000 teens, people were buying ownership in all types of assets, stocks, real estate, crypto, because they believed in the long-term value of these assets. After some time in stage 1 and asset prices start to go up, we enter stage 2 where people get a little bit greedier and they say, I wonder if there's a way for me to expose myself to more of these assets by using more debt. That way I can make even more money. In the 1990s, as internet company stocks started to rise, we saw the margin debt boom because for the first time, margin debt, meaning debt for investors, became available to regular people, and everybody wanted to own these internet stocks, which kept going up. So people were borrowing money they didn't have to buy these internet stocks, hoping they could get even richer faster. In the 2000s, it was people buying houses. Housing prices kept going up and up and up, and now people said, well, if housing prices only go up, how about we buy more house or buy more houses? So we saw the introduction of more ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, that way people could get easier access to mortgages to buy a house, at least in the short term, but then those mortgage rates would go up after a couple of years, but a lot of people didn't understand that. We saw ninja loans, no income, no job, no asset loans, meaning you don't have a job, you don't have any money, you don't have any assets, but here's a $400,000 loan to go buy a house. And then we saw subprime mortgages, which was you also don't even have a good credit score, but it's okay. You can go out and qualify for this house because everybody said if you own a house, you're going to get rich because home prices only go up. So people still want to own the asset. They're just buying it with more risky debt. And then in the 2000s, what do we see? We saw very low interest rates. So people were able to borrow cheap money because, well, it was essentially free, along with many different types of 3x leveraged ETFs, meaning instead of going out and investing in a fund that's giving you exposure to the stock market, you can invest in a fund that's giving you 3x leverage. Meaning if the stock market goes up by 10%, well, now you make 3 times that. But if the stock market goes down by 10%, well, now you lose 3 times that. So now you're amplifying your gains, not to mention the increase in margin debt here as well, because we've seen record amounts of margin debt in the 2010s and the 2020s. And this is where investment prices start to boom, because now there's so much money flooding the markets and people get even more greedy. Maybe they missed out a little bit on the gains, or maybe they want to make even more money because asset prices keep going up. It looks like there's no end in sight. So why not go in even bigger? But now instead of trying to own more of the asset like you're doing here you wanted to own more stocks with more debt. Here it was owning more real estate with more debt. Here it was owning more real estate, stocks, crypto with more debt. How about now you do something a little bit different? Stage 3 isn't about wanting to own a good asset. That's stage 1. Stage 3 is not about wanting to own more of this asset with more debt. That's stage 2. Stage 3 is about asking, what's going to make me rich, even if I don't have to own the asset? You don't care about what you're buying or how you're buying it. You just want to get exposure to something that's going to hopefully go up. So you are now getting into the predictive space. And what we saw happen leading up to the dot-com bubble bursting was the explosion and introduction of day trading. So now people were buying stocks not because they cared about the value of the asset, but because they saw momentum. That if this stock is rising, I want to own more of that because it's going to make me rich, and let me use a lot of margin, meaning debt, to buy that too, because that's going to make me even richer. In the 2000s, what we saw in the real estate market was people were trading MBSs, mortgage-backed securities. People were trading CDOs,
collateralized debt obligations,
and synthetic CDOs. What that means is now instead of actually trying to own the house, we had banks and big investors investing money into these derivatives, meaning you could go out and buy mortgages that were derivatives of mortgages that were packaged up together with a lot of debt, hoping that if people pay their mortgage, you're going to get rich. But it was under the assumption that people have to actually pay their mortgage on a good house. So we didn't really look at the value of the asset. We're just looking at the prediction that as long as people pay their mortgages, I'm going to get rich. In today's economy, it's betting your money and gambling based off of what you think is going to happen in the economy. Instead of owning Bitcoin, how about you bet on whether Bitcoin is going to hit $150,000 a coin? Instead of investing your money based off of what the Federal Reserve Bank is going to do, how about you just bet your money on what the Federal Reserve Bank is going to do? And instead of actually investing your money in the stock market, if you think it's going to go up tomorrow, how about you just bet your money on whether the stock market is going to go up tomorrow? We're seeing a growing movement of stage 3 betting or gambling happen in today's economy, because in November 2024, when the Trump election was happening, people were betting $1 billion a month. Today, it's at over $1 billion a week of people betting based off of what's going to happen tomorrow, as opposed to investing in assets that are actually going to give you value if that asset goes up tomorrow. Now, if you're an investor, you're going to be scratching your head thinking, if somebody believes Bitcoin is going to go up to $150,000 a coin, why wouldn't you just actually own the Bitcoin instead of betting on it? Well, let me show you. And I should also remind you that this is one of the reasons why on January 13th, 2026, I'm hosting a live and free investor workshop, because number one, our economy is changing very fast with things like AI, with new government policies, with the Federal Reserve Bank changing their policies, and with President Trump bringing in a new Fed chairman. And these things are going to create a new wave of investment opportunities. And if you understand this, it's going to give you the opportunity to grow your wealth faster, which is why on January 13th, I'm hosting this live investor workshop. It's free, where I'm going to be going over not only how our economy is changing, but how you can capitalize and find investment opportunities in this change. That way you can be on the winning side. It's a completely free workshop. It's live, and I'm doing it twice on January 13th, once in the morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and then again in the evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you'd like to join, all you have to do is register, but I do have one quick request, that if you are interested, please register soon, because there are a limited number of people that can join me live. Because every time I've done one of these investor workshops in the past, we've either hit capacity or became very close to hitting capacity, because there's a limited number of people that can actually join me live. So if you'd like to join, all you have to do is register, and I have the link for you down in the description below. We've seen these 3 stages happen again and again and again. Each one of them have ended with some sort of recession or bubble bursting. After the 1990s, it was the dot-com bubble bursting, which led to a recession. In the 2000s, it was the real estate crash, which led to the great financial crisis of 2008. And now we will see what ultimately happens. We saw the pandemic, but really that wasn't a real recession, because we had so much money enter our economic system. But now you might be wondering, why would somebody want to bet on an asset instead of actually wanting to own the asset? Let me show you. To keep it simple, let's talk about Bitcoin. And let's assume that Bitcoin is trading at $100,000 a coin, and it goes up to $150,000 a coin. You have 3 ways to make this investment. Option number 1 is you invest $1,000 into Bitcoin. When it's at $100,000, then it goes up to $150,000, which means now that $1,000 has grown to $1,500. You made 50%. Not bad. But with stage 2, you can amplify your returns with more debt. Now you're trying to amplify your returns with more debt, and so now you spend $1,000 buying Bitcoin plus $3,000 worth of leverage, debt, margin, call it whatever you want. You're borrowing this $3,000. That way you can hopefully make more money. And now when Bitcoin goes up to $150,000 a coin, instead of having $1,500, you're going to have $3,000, which is a growth of 200%, which means you 4x'd your gains because you took on some more debt. And now with stage 3, instead of actually investing in the asset or wanting more of the asset, you want a derivative of the asset. That way you can amplify your gains without actually caring about what the asset is. Right now on Kalshi, or at the time of recording this video, you could buy $1,000 of 9-cent contracts to buy Bitcoin and hope that it's going to go up to $150,000 a coin. If that hits, you're going to turn your $1,000 into $11,000. That's almost an 1,100% gain. So we're talking about big differences between how much money you can make, because now you're taking on more risk, because here you're not actually investing in anything. You're just gambling on a derivative. But what happens now if Bitcoin doesn't all the way go up to $150,000 a coin? What if it goes up to $110,000 a coin? Now the numbers look very different. If Bitcoin doesn't go all the way up to $150,000, but it goes up to $110,000, in scenario number 1, where you buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, you're now up to $1,100. In scenario number 2, where you finance this $4,000 worth of Bitcoin with $3,000 worth of debt, now you're gonna have $1,500 after paying off your debt. And in scenario number 3, where you're buying these contracts of Bitcoin, hoping it's gonna go up to $150,000, you're gonna lose all $1,000. Because Bitcoin did not go up to $150,000. And if Bitcoin were to go down in value, because guess what? Crypto is very speculative. It goes up and down. In this case, you're down but you can hold on to your asset if you believe on the long-term value, assuming that you're not investing money that you can't afford to lose. In scenario 2, you're down. And if you're forced to sell because your broker gives you a margin call, well, now not only did you lose what you put in, but you also lost that debt that you may have to pay back. In scenario 3, again, you lose everything that you put in, and hopefully you did not use any debt, because if you use debt, you also lost that as well. History doesn't exactly repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And what we've seen happen throughout history, decade after decade after decade, is we've seen the investing cycle go from stage 1, people wanting to own an asset and wanting to own the long-term value of this asset because they believe it's undervalued, to then going on to stage 2, people start to get a little more greedy. They see this asset prices go up, and now they want to own more of these assets with more debt. And then it moves on to stage 3, where people want to own derivatives of the asset, where now they just want to get rich because asset prices are going up, but now they're predicting as opposed to wanting to actually care about what the underlying value of the asset is. Before the dot-com bubble, it was the day trading, people just buying off of momentum. Before the real estate bubble burst, it was people trading mortgage-backed securities, it was trading CDOs, and then it was trading synthetic CDOs because people just wanted to get rich off the housing market, assuming that people actually paid their mortgages. And then what we're seeing happening today is this predictive asset game, where people are investing not into the stock market, but based off of what's going to happen in the stock market tomorrow. People are investing not in crypto, but based off of what Bitcoin might do in 2026. People are investing not in the economy, but based off of what the Federal Reserve Bank might actually do. And this is a shift in investing, and it's really gambling, but people think it's investing because now they can amplify their returns. Now, every time we've seen these 3 stages of investing happen in the past, some people, the financially savvy, became incredibly wealthy, while most people lost a lot of money. And the reason why is because the people that became wealthy understood these 3 rules of investing that you need to pay attention to. Rule number 1, don't buy what you don't understand. This is a concept that Warren Buffett has talked about very openly, that he does not like to buy stocks or investments that he does not understand. If you don't know what it is that you're buying, if you don't understand the asset, if you don't understand why this could go up in the future, besides just all the hype that people have on the internet, don't buy it. Rule number 2, do not invest more than you are willing to lose. If you cannot afford to lose that $1,000 because you need to pay your bills, do not invest that $1,000. The money that you invest should be extra money that you don't need to pay your expenses. This is extra money that you want to put aside to hopefully grow in value, because the reality is investing is risky. You're never guaranteed to make money when you invest. In fact, you will lose money at some point, so make sure you always do your own due diligence and never blindly trust a random guy on YouTube. And number 3, don't forget that poop happens. Poop is a part of our economic system. Poop stands for panic, leads to overselling, leads to opportunity, leads to profit. We have seen poop play out in recession after recession after recession, decade after decade after decade, market crash after market crash after market crash. The reality is, over the last 100 years, we have seen 16 recessions, which means, yes, we are averaging more than 1 recession per decade. Over the last 100 years, we have seen 25 market crashes, which means we are averaging more than 2 market crashes per decade, and a market crash is defined as the stock market falling by 20% or more. And in each one of these downturns, poop happened. People panicked. They believed that the economy was going to implode. They believed that the markets were going to collapse, which then led to overselling, because either people took on too much debt or they were gambling money, and now they were forced to sell, which then created forced overselling, but then also people panicking and overselling, which then led to markets dropping big, which then creates O, the second O, opportunity. And this opportunity now is for the financially savvy investors who have access to money, who understand that, people are panicking, creating this overselling, which creates opportunity for you to come in and buy good assets at a discounted price. During the 2020 pandemic, the stock market had sold off by over 30%. In just a few days, which created opportunity. During the 2008 crash, we saw the stock market get cut in half. Real estate prices got cut in half. Again, that created an opportunity for financially savvy investors with money to come and invest. During the dot-com bubble bursting, we saw internet stocks fall by more than 75% because people thought that the internet was over. It creates opportunity for the financially savvy who have money to come in and invest, which creates the opportunity for profit. Assuming that you're patient. If you're buying good assets When they're on sale, it gives you the opportunity to profit, assuming that you are patient. And this is a cycle that we've seen happen again and again and again. People want good assets, so they start buying them. Then asset prices start to go up. People get a little bit more greedy. Once they get a little bit more greedy, now they want more exposure to those assets with more debt. This creates an asset explosion, and now prices go up even more. As prices go up even more, people want to get in even more. But now instead of wanting to own the asset or get more exposure to the asset, they just want to get rich without having to touch the asset. They just want to ride the momentum. They just want to ride the wave. And now people start investing or gambling in derivatives that is all or nothing. And once you start to see that dangerous money, that gambling money, well, that creates an even bigger explosion, and eventually that bubble will burst. When? Nobody knows. It could happen in a year, 5 years, 8 years, but eventually those bubbles burst. And the bigger the bubble, the bigger the burst. And the financially savvy have the opportunity to build wealth, while everybody else then, who was playing the game of hot potato, ends up losing. This is why, again, on January 13th, I have my live investor workshop where I'm going to be going over how investment opportunities are changing in 2026. If you haven't registered for that, make sure you do so. But this is why, again, it is so important for you to be a financially savvy investor. That way you can capitalize on opportunities instead of chasing opportunities, because, well, there's more than one once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you're going to see. The housing market is facing a trifecta of problems. We have number one, high housing prices, with number two, high mortgage rates, with number three, not that many houses for sale. In response, the Federal Reserve Bank just cut interest rates for the third time in 2025, and many people are hoping this is going to make housing a little bit more affordable. Well, the Fed just responded saying,